Hello guys, and welcome back to another Zoldox tutorial. Today we are going to be making our attack animation. There's going to be a couple ways we can do this, so I'll show you guys a few ways, a few ideas that you guys can go with. I'll ultimately go with the one that I've chosen here just because I like it, but there's a bunch of different ways we can do this, so let's go ahead and get started right away. Alright, cool. So let's start off with the simplest way you guys can start doing this. If you guys don't want to be making a Zelda-like game, you guys can be making a first-person shooter. It works almost exactly the same, and I'll be using this method when I do the arrows, but it works perfectly fine as a gun or bullet as well. So let's try to make a little projectile real quick. So first off, I'm going to go and create a new object. I'm going to go down to sprite, wherever that is, and call this bullet for now. Let's just paste this over here. Now I'm going to resize this to 8 by 8. I want it to be a really small projectile. So I'll make it red for evil. I haven't decided how I was going to draw this before I started. So this is what it's going to look like. And let's give it a little highlight in the middle. Alright, remember guys that your sprites always aim to the right whenever you're making something, so try not to make your bullet facing up if it's for say an arrow. Alright, can you guys leave me alone? Alright, so remember guys, all your projectiles face to the right. Everything faces to the right in Construct, so try not to make your projectile, if you're making an arrow, don't make it facing up because it won't look right in your game. So anyway, we've created our projectile. Let's just make sure the origin point is in the center. And also, one other thing I wanted to do is check out our collision box. Now, our collision box is just a perfect square around our circle, which is fine for now. We'll mess with this a little bit more later when we get into the arrow. But for now, we'll just leave it the way it is. And yeah, so this will be pretty easy. Now, first off, I'm going to make a new group in our event sheet. And I'm going to call this Start Up. And what I'm going to do is make a sub-event, go to System, and go on Start of Layout. I want to add an action, and I'm going to have my bullet destroy itself. Now this is because our projectile exists within our world, so when we start the game, for example... Oh, well, now I've added the code. Let me just... Okay, let's try this again. As you can see, it starts off in the game already, and we don't want it there. We only want it to appear as soon as we attack. So I'm going to uncomment this code and we'll leave it at that. Now real quickly we can just add a behavior to this, and we're going to add the bullet behavior pretty simply, and this will explain more why I want this code, which I'll delete again. But as you can see, when it starts off, a bullet flies off the screen, and we do need this to be on our layout in order for it to exist in our game. Now usually I make a separate layout called objects, and I put all my objects in there. We'll do that a little bit later once we start getting more into the meat of the game. But for now, let's just put it up here off the screen and uncomment our code that just destroys the bullet as soon as the layout starts. Alright, but still, this does nothing, as we're probably well aware at this point. So, this will be really simple. Let's go back to our player movement, and let's make a subgroup here, and I'll call it Attack. And I'll drag this to the bottom, and then I'm going to make another subgroup here called Projectile, and make a sub-event here, and we'll just go to our gameplay objects, to our keyboard, and on key pressed, let's go with spacebar, and all we have to do is have our player spawn another object, and this object will be our bullet. And everything we can leave for right now, because the thing that's cool about the bullet object is that it has this little check mark right here that says set angle. Now if you don't want this, you can uncheck it, but you'll see why we want it here. Actually, I'll uncheck it right now, and you can see that when I press the space bar, our bullet always goes to the right. We want it to be facing the direction of our player. Now since we're affecting the angle of our player with our mouse, it'll always spawn the bullet the angle that our player is facing. So if we go back to our bullet and we check set angle, now, as you can see when I press the space bar, it shoots the direction that we're facing. Now we might not want this on the space bar. In fact, I'm going to change it to right click. So instead of space press, I'm just going to go back, and I'm going to go to mouse on click, and let's go with right click. So that feels a little bit better because I'm actually pointing at where I'm shooting. And so now we have a cool little projectile, pretty simply. Now, we also want a sword. So I'm going to make another sub-event here to our attack, our subgroup, I mean, and call this sword. Now there's a bunch of different ways we can do this. I will show you a really simple way, kind of the Zelda 1-esque solution. So let's make a new sprite and call it sword real quick. I'm going to place this over here. Let's make this 8x8 as well. And really quickly, I'm just going to draw, using some gray, a sword. I'm just doing this real dirty because I'm not going to be using it. So we'll just have that. In fact, let's make it a little bit bigger. So I'll resize this, align center, make the width 10 pixels and the height 10 pixels as well. And let's stretch this out. And let's give it a little highlight or something. That won't show up because my background is white still. There we go. All right, I'm spending too much time on this. Anyway, the point is, this is supposed to be a sword. So we can do basically the same thing, but we'll have to do a few more steps. So I'm going to go back to sword and make a sub-event here. And I want to go on gameplay, on mouse, click, and then we're going to use left click this time. And we're going to have our players spawn another object, and it's going to be our sword. Now I'm going to take this from over here, and instead of spawning a bullet, I'm going to spawn the sword. Now there's a bunch of problems with this. First of all, the sword spawns directly on top of us. It faces the direction we want, but it also is like directly on top of us, and it doesn't disappear, etc. So simply, let's actually go back to our sword. And I'm going to take its origin point, and instead of having it in the middle, I'm going to right click and quick assign to the left. Now, apply to all animations just to be safe, even though there aren't any animations. And as you can see now, the sword kind of comes off maybe with not the right intention. So let's actually mess with this sword a little bit more so it looks more like a sword. Let's make this 24 by 20. Let's make it big. Maybe that's too big, but we'll make it big anyway. All right. I meant to not spend any time on this sword, but now I'm spending too much time on it. So I apologize in advance for any innuendos I may have innuended. All right, let's make sure this origin point is on the left again, and actually in the center. Apply to all animations, just to be safe. Okay, so now we have a little bit more of what we're looking for. Now I want to do a couple things on this. First of all, as you can see, it just spawns exactly where we are, and since it's not a bullet, it's not going to fly off the screen and disappear, which doesn't actually happen yet, but we'll get to that. We want it to actually pin to our player so that when our player is moving, he actually stays where he wants, or we can have him stop. But I'll do it pinned to the player because that's a little bit more fun. The stopping is a little old school. I add a new behavior, and I'm going to add the pin behavior. Now this will pin it to our object. So this still doesn't do it yet because we haven't told it to do anything yet. So now we'll go back to our event sheet, and on left click, we're going to spawn the sword, and then we're going to add an action. We'll go to our sword, and we're going to pin to object, and we're going to pin to the player. And we want to leave it at position and angle because we want him to be facing the direction. So now we have a sword in our hand, but it looks kind of silly because I've actually spawned like probably maybe 30 of these already, but there's only one in my hand. And that's because it just keeps spawning on top of each other over and over again. So we're going to add a little bit of an animation to the sword itself in order for it to actually complete, and that way it'll destroy itself when the animation is complete. You can do this in a couple ways, but I'm going to do it this way because I want to. So I'm going to duplicate this frame, and I'm actually going to take this sword and bulge it out a little bit so it looks like it kind of like blossoms, I guess you'll say. And then duplicate the first frame again and have it, let's see, thin out. I'm not sure how this animation is going to look, but let's find out. So let's make the speed like 18. And let me just see how this looks in game. Okay, I think that's what I want. Maybe let's, when it blossoms, is this the word I'm using? Blossoms out, I'm going to have the sword kind of peek in. So it kind of like shoots forward a little bit. Let's see how that looks. All right, let's see how it looks when I do this. So underneath the sword in our event sheet, I'm going to add a sub event here, and I'm going to go to our sword, and I'm going to go to on finished. Now make sure you type in the animation. Now this is animation 1 because that's what it's called here. I can actually change this to like attack, and make sure that we change this from animation 1 to attack, or else it won't work. If you guys did that at the same time as me, make sure you change this back to attack. If you type in a quotation mark, it'll come up with all the actual, I just pointed at my screen, it'll come up with all the actual animations that you have for your sword. So on animation attack finished, we'll make a sword disappear, and we'll destroy it on the animation finished. So this animation looks ridiculous, but it was just for an example. So if you guys don't want your sword to look like this, but you want to have this be kind of the general animation of your sword, you can go ahead and do that. There's some more tweaking we can do with it. I'll just mess with some of it right now. Let's see. Let's make this like shorter and further back. So when it comes forward, it'll like, I think this bloom is like way too much. All right, let's see that. All right, this is fine. If this is what you want, this is totally fine. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it does function. Yeah, so for now we'll just leave this the way it is, and we'll try a different kind of attack. I'll make a new subgroup here called Sword 2, and I'm just going to edit this out for now. So now when I go back, you can see that none of this is happening anymore. So let's go ahead and make our second sword animation. So I'm going to right click, insert a new object, call it a sprite. We're going to call this slice. We'll call it slice. Throw that down. We're going to resize this to 24 by 24. Now remember, our animation is facing to the right. So the way I'm going to do this is hand animate this animation. So I'm going to start with like this kind of start off, and let's just make a new frame and have it come out. Actually, let's make it really quick. So it's already finished basically the entire animation by the second frame, because we want it to happen really fast. We want it to just be able to slice and dice our grass and our enemies eventually. So it comes out like that, and then I'll duplicate this and just erase a lot of it. We want the trail to kind of trail off, so we'll leave like a couple pixels as though it had trailed off. And let's just delete this completely so we have a final frame. Okay, and actually I want to have this, I'm going to have this actually not complete the entire turn, just so there's a little bit more of an animation. Okay, cool. Let's make the speed 18 again. That's just a number I picked randomly, so don't worry about that. Now, real quick, I just made this on a white background, so let's actually go to our layer real quick, and we can change the change the background color to like a green, something nice. Give it a little blue. We can see it. Let's just check out what this looks like in game. That's pretty much exactly what I want, I think. Let's make it a little bit faster, actually. Let's make it 20. This is a new number that I have just invented. 20. Oh, one last thing we want to do. Well, I'll get back to that in a second. I want you guys to reinforce your own ideas about how games work. So we'll do the same thing. Let's go to our sword 1, and let's just copy this on mouse clicked. Throw this under here. Make sure you press D to unselect it, or uncomment it out. Left button click. Instead of spawning this sword, we're going to spawn the slice. The slice. I don't know why I said it like that. I apologize. And we're also going to pin this to our player, but we have not applied the pin behavior yet to it. So let's go over here. What is this color doing here? Let's select our guy, go over to behaviors. We'll give him the pin behavior. It's just this pin. And we'll go back to our event sheet. I'm just going to delete this and add a new action. We'll go to slice. We're going to go down to pin to object. And then we'll pin to the player. Position and angle. So now it's going to work basically the same as it did before. But there's a couple problems that you guys are probably already aware of, and I hope you are. Pop quiz right now. If you can fix this without me telling you, then you win your very own goodwill. You win a... I don't want to offer anything because I'm not going to give you anything, but congratulations. So, if you've passed the test, you'll know that the first thing we have to do is set the origin point quick assign to the left. And actually, so here's why I was doing this before. If you look on animation, on our first frame, our little anchor point is here on the left, but in the rest of them, it's all in the middle. And that's bad. That's why we want to apply to all animations. That way the origin point stays where it's supposed to be. And now, when we do this, the sword comes off in the front of us like this. Now this looks like kind of a Grim Reaper thing, but it's fine. I'm okay with that. Now, there's other things we want to do. Now, you can see that the sword does disappear when it's over, but there's actually a bunch of instances of it. If we go to debug layout, we'll see that every time I actually click, it creates a new slice, and it doesn't disappear. There's 14 of them now, and now there's 20. Now there's 30 of them. So we don't want that. We want it to destroy again. So we'll make another sub event here. We'll go to slice on animation finished. And we'll make this the animation 1. I'm just going to leave it as animation 1 for right now. In fact, no, I'm not. We gotta stay on top of our own here. So let's make sure we do this the correct way, because I'm teaching you guys good habits. So on slice animation finished, we'll go to slice and then destroy it. We also want to do on our startup over here, we'll have our slice destroy on the beginning of the layout as well. That way it doesn't show up at the beginning of our game. But now you can see our swipe animation totally works. And if we check out our debug layout, you can see that they only exist as long as we want them to. Now I do think I'm going to mess with this a little bit. Don't really like too much how there's so much Grim Reaper happening. So let's just get rid of this. And I think that will look a little, yeah, there we go. That looks a lot better. All right. So that's gonna be it for our attack animations, our swords, and our projectile for now. Sorry this ended up being a little bit longer. I'm trying to make sure that we have as much content packed in as fast as possible because I want you guys to be out there making games. So, yeah, if you guys want to check me out on itch, it's It's action-cancel.itch.io. I should have action cancel with no dash, but for some reason Leaf won't give it to me. I don't know why. But you can download my Procreate brushes if you'd like. There's some free wallpapers that you can check out that are totally free, and they look like this. There's also some demos of some games. Spire, which is a demo of a game I made a while back that does actually basically follow the kind of design decisions that we're using in this video. So if you guys want to play this to kind of see, as you can see, I'm using the same technique. You can see I spawn items here. I can cut grass. And there's some arrows that I can't use yet because I don't have the bow. But if you guys want to check that out, you guys can go ahead and check it out on my itch page. Buy some of my stuff, please. And it'll keep me making tutorials, even if it's just $1, even if you don't use them. And yeah, that's about it, guys. So I'll see you in the next video, and good luck and have fun.